Some stories aren't told because they're too unbelievable. Others, because they're too dangerous. This isn't one of those viral horror tales about ghosts or killers in the woods. Number, what you're about to hear is worse than that. It's about hunger, the kind that doesn't come from the stomach, but from the soul, the kind only money can feed, the kind that whispers through corridors you'll never be allowed to see. You know the houses, the hidden estates, the people who live behind mirrored glass and blood-sealed gates. You've heard the stories about underground menus, elite parties, things served in courses with no names. Most people laugh it off. I did too, until I was hired to deliver to one of them. I wasn't special, just a van driver for a catering company. Signed an NDA, followed the GPS, dropped the food at the door. That's it. But I peeked, I looked inside, and I brought part of it home. Now I know what they eat, and if I don't tell someone, I'm afraid it'll rot inside me. I never used to take last-minute gigs. Not anymore. When I was younger, I'd jump at anything that paid, no matter the time, distance, or sketchiness. But I'm not that guy now. I've got a mortgage, a wife recovering from surgery, and a van with 180,000 miles on it that only starts when it feels like it. So when dispatch called me at 7:12 p.m. offering an urgent, high-paying catering run, I almost said no. Almost. It's for a private estate, the dispatcher said. Top-tier client, short notice, big payout. I asked why they weren't using the usual luxury courier service. There was a pause. They specifically asked for low visibility, she said. You'll be picking up from a private prep facility, not one of our regular kitchens. That raised a flag. But then she added, you'll need to sign a non-disclosure. Just standard protocol. No stops, no photos, no questions. I pulled the doc up on my phone. 5 pages of legal boilerplate with odd phrases like biological inventory, organic protein transport, and client anonymity clause. At the bottom, a signature field and the payout, 4 times what I usually make for an overnight delivery. And we needed it. The insurance deductible for my wife's surgery had drained everything. Rent was due. And the van was leaking something, I still didn't know what. So I signed. That's when she sent the address. It wasn't a kitchen. It was just Valley Prime, Bay 6. I texted my wife before leaving. Late run, be home after 2. Don't wait up. She sent back a red heart and a thumbs up. When I arrived, the place looked more like a storage facility than a kitchen. No logo, no signs, just a long white building surrounded by cameras and chain link fencing. The air smelled like bleach and cold metal. 2 men were waiting by the loading bay. Both wore black aprons, rubber gloves, and mirrored sunglasses. At night, they didn't smile, didn't introduce themselves. They rolled out 6 stainless steel coolers, waist high, on thick dollies. No wheels, no handles, no markings. One of them nodded at me. Van open? I unlocked the back. They loaded in silence. As I strapped the last cooler down, one of them stepped closer. He had a faded scar down the side of his neck that looked like a burn. Drive safe, he said, and don't open anything. Then he added, almost like a joke, but without smiling, they're already hungry. He slapped the side of the cooler, and it made a sound I wasn't expecting. Not a hollow thunk. It was a shift, like a weight moving. Something soft and heavy sliding inside. I swallowed, nodded, got in the van, and pulled out onto the highway. But that sound stayed with me. And the more I thought about it, it didn't sound like meat. The road into the canyon was darker than I remembered. No streetlights, just the dim glow of my headlights bouncing off trees and rock walls, throwing shadows that moved like they were alive. The GPS kept rerouting, switching between 2 different canyons, then finally settling on a gravel road I'd never seen before. As I climbed, I kept glancing in the rear view, watching the coolers. They didn't move, but I couldn't shake the sound one of them made when it was loaded. That sliding weight, that wet thunk, like something large and raw shifting in a bag. I told myself it was pork, or maybe beef. Something vacuum sealed, dense. But that was just me trying to believe the easy version of this story. About 20 minutes in, I noticed a smell. Not strong, just off. Metallic, but sweet, like copper and citrus. Not rot, not blood exactly. Something in between. Like someone had wiped down the inside of a butcher shop with orange cleaner and hadn't rinsed it well enough. I rolled down the window. The smell got stronger. It was coming from the back. I tried to distract myself by turning on a podcast, but even that didn't help. I kept thinking about the containers, how they didn't have any markings, how they didn't need refrigeration because they were already ice cold, how nobody had smiled. Not once. I remembered the guy with the burn scar saying, "They're already hungry." Who says that? About catering? I knew high-end clients had strange tastes. I'd delivered some weird stuff before. Ostrich meat, foie gras, unpasteurized cheese from small European farms. But there were always invoices, labels, names. This was different, sterile, secret. And the deeper into the canyon I got, the more it felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. Then the phone rang again. Unmarked number. I answered through the hands-free. "Do not stop." The voice was different this time. Not my dispatcher. A man's voice. Cold. Director. "You're on private property now. No lights, no calls, no interference." I cleared my throat. "Who is this?" There was a pause. "The client is tracking your position. They don't appreciate delays." "Okay," I said. "Look, do not stop." I wasn't going to, I'm just saying, they know how many containers you're carrying. They know the weight. They know if you've tampered with anything. Another pause. "And they're very hungry." Click. I sat there for a few seconds, jaw clenched, heart thudding in my chest. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. I almost missed the turn. A barely visible gravel path between two giant pines, totally unmarked. As I turned onto it, the van bounced hard, and one of the coolers in the back shifted. A single muffled thud echoed through the cabin. I hit the brakes. The smell wafted forward again, stronger now. Wet metal, something primal. It hit the back of my throat. I looked in the rearview mirror again. Nothing moved, but I could have sworn. I heard a sound, just barely. A slow, wet sliding noise, like something raw peeling away from plastic. I sat there for a while, foot on the brake, hands frozen. That was the moment. The moment I could have turned around, said screw the money, dumped the load and gone home. But I didn't. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was stress, fatigue, that I'd deliver the coolers, collect the cash, and go home to my wife and never speak of this again. I took my foot off the brake and kept driving. I wasn't going to stop. I kept telling myself that as the road twisted deeper into the hills, no signs, no street lights, no turnarounds. My headlights barely cut through the dense trees, but the smell was getting worse. More than metallic now, heavier, like iron left out in the rain. It coated the inside of my nose and settled on the back of my tongue. I could taste it. I cracked the window again. It didn't help. When I saw a small rest stop up ahead, just a gravel turnout with a single dim lamp and a bench, I didn't even think. I pulled in. I told myself it was just to breathe, to check the straps in the back, stretch my legs. But the second I stepped out, the cool air hit me, and that smell came with it, thicker now, like it had been waiting for release. Still, I opened the van's rear doors. The coolers sat in a neat row, perfectly still, but I noticed something new. There was condensation on one of the lids, beading at the corners, a faint drip down the side. I wiped it with my sleeve. The sweat on my arms told me I was more nervous than I wanted to admit. "It's just meat," I whispered. "That's all it is." I walked around to the side of the van, slid open the door, and grabbed my multi-tool from the glove box. I knew better, but I was tired, broke, scared, and maybe part of me needed to see something normal, something human. I wedged the tool under the lip of one cooler's biometric lock and gave it a light pry. The seal hissed, that soft pop of released pressure. Cold mist puffed out. Inside was a black vacuum-sealed bag, thick as a pillow and wet with frost. I peeled back a corner. Meat, marbled clean rich red with thick white fat, almost purple in places. It looked like high-end beef, or pork, or something in between. My chest loosened. I laughed, quiet and bitter. Jesus, it's just meat. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I did something I still can't explain. I took a pack out, just one, sealed, solid, heavy in my hands. I slid it into my personal cooler behind the front seat. Then I took a second. They won't miss two, I told myself. Hell, they probably expect the driver to help himself. I closed the cooler lid. The gravel road narrowed the deeper I drove. My van rattled over uneven dips as trees closed in on both sides. The GPS had gone dark 5 minutes ago. Just a spinning circle now. Then, without warning, the trees opened. And there it was, the mansion. Modernist, stark, all concrete angles and glass walls like something built for function, not comfort. There were no windows open, no lights on inside. Just a faint golden glow spilling from sconces by the front door, like the place was waiting in silence. I slowed to a crawl. A set of black iron gates loomed up ahead. They parted as I approached, sliding open without a sound. I pulled into a turnaround already lined with luxury cars. A Rolls, a blacked-out Tesla, something German I didn't even recognize. No people, just wealth parked in silence. I killed the engine. Almost immediately, a man in a black suit appeared from the shadows. He didn't look like security. No earpiece, no weapon, but the way he moved said he was in control. "Unload here," he said, gesturing to the coolers. "The kitchen is through the east corridor." His voice was flat, pleasant, and practiced, like he'd said those same words 100 times. I got out, opened the back, and grabbed the first dolly. My breath fogged slightly in the air. The temperature had dropped without me noticing. Inside, the place was dead quiet. The hallway stretched in both directions, floor polished like a mirror, walls cold and gray. I rolled the cooler behind him, trying not to let the wheels squeak too loudly. We passed a dining room on the left. That's when I saw them. Two people standing by the window, half lit in the reflection of the glass, talking softly, calmly. I stopped walking. Oprah Winfrey, and beside her, Diddy. They didn't see me, or maybe they did, and just didn't care. They were dressed for a gala, elegant, effortless. Diddy was sipping something dark from a crystal tumbler. Oprah's smile was faint, like someone waiting patiently for a performance to begin. I turned away and kept walking. The staff kitchen was a different world. Bright, white, industrial grade, like a lab more than a kitchen. One of the staff, a woman in a charcoal uniform and latex gloves, pointed to a dumbwaiter. "They'll be plated downstairs," she said. "Just leave them here." As I parked the cooler, she popped the lock with a thumbprint and opened it. Inside was a single vacuum-sealed bag, identical to the ones I'd taken, nestled on a tray like a prized artifact. She lifted it out gently, almost reverently. "Perfect marbling," she murmured. "No veins, no bruising." Then she smiled at me. "They'll be pleased." I don't remember blinking. I just nodded, backed away. And for the first time since I started the drive, I wanted to leave. She handed the vacuum-sealed bag to another staff member who carried it off through a set of double doors like it was a trophy. I stayed behind, pretending to adjust the dolly straps while trying to collect myself. The room felt colder now, not from temperature, from something under the skin. I was about to leave when the woman in charcoal scrubs called over her shoulder, "You can take the last cooler to storage. Follow him." She pointed to a tall man wheeling a bin through a swinging door marked inventory. He didn't wait for me. I grabbed the last dolly and followed. The hallway narrowed. The tile changed from white to matte gray. The lighting dimmed as we descended a small ramp into the sublevel. No signs, no noise except our wheels echoing softly. At the end was a heavy metal door with a biometric scanner. The man pressed his palm against it. A green light blinked. Access granted. The door opened with a vacuum hiss. Freezer air poured out, sharp and dry, biting through my jacket. I stepped in behind him. It looked like a meat locker. Hooks hung from steel bars overhead. Shelving lined the walls. Packaged cuts stacked in perfect rows, some with frost still clinging to the plastic. And then I noticed the labels. Humma, shoulder. PRMH, thigh. Juvenile prime, delicate cut. Infant ribs, small plate. Each one neatly stamped, barcoded, weighed. My hands went cold. I scanned the shelves again, hoping, praying that it was some sort of high-end butcher's joke. Then I saw it, hanging at the far end of the freezer. A leg, human, pale, shaved. Cleanly removed at the hip, the joint rounded like it had been cut by someone with surgical precision. Wrapped in tight vacuum seal, tagged like all the others. I couldn't breathe. The man beside me kept moving like it was just another Wednesday. He opened the cooler and began inventorying the contents out loud. 6 units Humvee, 2 thigh, 1 tenderloin, 1 mixed offal. I backed toward the door. My mind struggled to make sense of it. Then I heard her voice, calm and rich and terrifyingly familiar. You're not authorized to view the inventory. I turned. Oprah Winfrey stood at the threshold of the freezer, dressed like royalty. Silk shawl, diamond earrings, flawless skin glowing in the cold light. She didn't look surprised. She looked patient. Beside her, Diddy entered, his hands tucked into his coat, chin lowered like he was examining a sculpture. They didn't ask why I was there. They didn't accuse me of anything. Instead, Oprah stepped closer, eyes never leaving mine. You got curious. That's normal. Curiosity is the first doorway to elevation. I couldn't respond. My mouth was dry. My heart thudded like a warning bell inside my chest. She gestured to the hanging leg beside me. When you first break the cycle of obedience, when you stop eating what they sell to the masses, you unlock clarity. Your body starts to wake up, your mind sharpens. Diddy finally spoke. His voice was smooth but hollow, like a sermon echoing through a cave. Do you know what separates the powerful from the obedient? I shook my head. My lips moved, but no sound came out. He smiled, slow and knowing. Appetite. The elite, Oprah said, turning to walk slowly through the freezer. Don't ask permission. We consume what serves us. Flesh, energy, influence. The body has hidden doors, but they only open with certain keys. She stopped beside a sealed tray labeled neonate thymus, tapped the plastic with a manicured nail. Delicacies, forgotten parts, soft, untapped fuel. It's not about taste, Diddy added. It's about alignment. You eat the weak to ascend. That's the design. My stomach twisted. My knees buckled slightly. Why me? I managed to croak. She looked back at me, head tilted like she was studying a child. You delivered, you peeked, you took. That's the first step, claiming something forbidden. Most pretend they didn't see. You didn't. You're halfway through the door, Diddy said. Might as well step in. They weren't angry. They were offering. That was the worst part. Oprah moved to the exit and smiled. Dinner is about to be served. You're welcome to stay. If you eat, you'll never be hungry again. They left without looking back. I stood alone in the freezer, surrounded by butchered evidence and promises of power. My breath fogged in front of me. I didn't feel like a man anymore. I don't remember how I got back to the van. I must have passed a dozen people, turned down 3 wrong halls, and nearly crashed into a prep cart on the way out. But no one stopped me. No one even looked at me, because they didn't need to. The moment Oprah spoke those words, "You're halfway through the door," I knew something had shifted, not in them, in me. They hadn't threatened me. They hadn't begged me to stay. They'd simply offered. And that made it worse. I sped down the canyon like the gates of hell were behind me. The winding road blurred through the windshield, and all I could hear was the freezer, the hum of cold steel, the suction-sealed flesh, and their voices. The elite don't ask permission. We consume what serves us. You took. That's the first step. You'll never be hungry again. Somewhere outside Topanga, another catering van passed me going up the hill. Young driver, confident posture, smiling. He even gave me a wave. I didn't wave back. He didn't know what door he was delivering to. Not yet. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my clothes were soaked with sweat, my hands numb on the wheel. The van idled in front of the house for a full minute before I moved. The cooler I had taken, my bonus, still sat behind the passenger seat. 2 packages inside, unlabeled, untouched, but I could feel them, like they were radiating something now. Weight, guilt, or maybe potential. The house was dark except for the soft glow in the kitchen. I stepped inside, locked the door behind me, and listened. Nothing. I went to the bathroom, turned on the shower as hot as it would go, let the steam fill the air until the mirror blurred and my skin turned red. But it didn't help, because the smell, that coppery citrus sweetness, was still in my nose, still under my nails, still in me. I got out, dried off, and stood in the hallway in silence. That's when I smelled something cooking, something sizzling. My heart sank. The kitchen light was on. My wife was standing at the stove in her robe, humming to herself. A skillet crackled beside her. The scent hit me. Rich, seared fat, rendered perfectly. Familiar, but wrong. She turned, smiling. Hey, I was starving. I found those steaks in the little cooler behind the seat. They were starting to thaw, so I figured I'd surprise you. My mouth went dry. They're amazing, she added, holding up a fork. You didn't tell me you picked up Wagyu. This must have cost a fortune. I stared at the plate. Blood pooled beneath the meat, soaking into the mashed potatoes. Want a bite? She asked. She said it so casually, like it was dinner, like it was nothing. They didn't need to kill me to recruit me. All they had to do was feed my house.